Let me start by extending sincere condolences to the families and friends of the late Miss Jackie Lake, who is an employee of the government who passed, and especially on behalf of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Mr. William Marlin, who is presently in the Netherlands on duty travel. I also would like to express condolences to my colleague, the Minister of Justice of Aruba, Mr. Dowers, and the police force of Aruba with the loss of one of their officers in a senseless killing a few days ago. On a lighter note, next week, starting this weekend actually, we will be having guests arriving for the conference, the JVO conference, which is a conference of the 4 ministers of justice of the kingdom. That meeting takes place twice a year, and St. Martin is hosting this meeting on the request of Curaçao, who was supposed to be the original host, but due to their recent election and change in minister, St. Martin was asked if he wanted to host it. So that meeting will be taking place here from Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So that we hope that we would have successful deliberations during those couple of days. I also would like to announce that July the 17th is Justice Day. And this year we would be celebrating for a long weekend. Normally we do a whole week. Sometimes it's customary, but we've been doing a long weekend from July the 14th, Friday, July the 14th to July the 17th. And we will be having different activities for members of the justice chain. We will also naturally be having a church ceremony and some activities and a parade. A lot of questions came into the ministry, and I guess I was asked sometime about it by some of you, the members of the press, pertaining to the gun policy and the issuing of gun licenses. The information would be that indeed late last year, in November last year, a new gun policy was introduced. And the gun policy that was introduced is a very restrictive policy, restrictive in the sense that we are very careful with who we issue gun permits to. And let it be clear, I support the policy on the books 100%. A lot of requests were submitted, and folks were getting very worried because they were not getting any answers to their requests. Along with the institution of the new policy, a committee was installed who would advise the minister on the issuing of said permits. That committee got started, and a procedure was put into place as to how they would deal with the many requests that we had. In the belief that people should be able to get an answer within a reasonable period of time on their requests, I started to look into the matter and indeed realized that some of the requests were pending for a long time, not due to any unwill from the committee or the ministry itself, just the procedures made it take that long. However, we are talking about the possession of weapons, and if you do not have a valid gun permit, gun license, or whatever we would like to call it, then you would be violating the law for illegal weapon possession. which would mean that you could be fined or even prosecuted for such. I don't think that this would be a fair thing to happen because the requests were not being dealt with timely enough. So, in consultation with the committee, I sought the advice of the committee and got their approval based on the explanation, and have decided to make a proclamation by which all persons who were in the possession of a gun permit and which have expired and who have requested a renewal for such permit, their permits would be extended until the end of the year. So I will repeat, the end of this year. Normally the permit is given for a year. In this case, we'll be looking at 6 months. This is done in order to give the administration enough time to process the requests that are pending. So I would repeat, all persons who were in the possession of a gun permit that expired and who have requested, and underline that, who have requested an extension. So even if you had a gun permit and you did not apply for an extension before today, this doesn't apply to you. But those who have requested an extension, they will be covered by this decision, by which their gun permit would be extended for a period of 6 months until the 31st of January, or up to the time that a decision is taken on their request. I would like to remind the public, however, as was said before, that having had a gun permit does not mean that it automatically renews. It is not automatically extended. If your gun permit has expired and you do not fall under this regulation, then you should take your gun to the police and give it to them for holding until your request has been dealt with. So again, all persons and only persons, this does not apply to businesses, this applies to individuals. All individuals who have a gun permit that has expired and who have requested an extension, their permit as of today would be automatically extended until the end of the year. What they would have to do is when carrying their gun or their weapon with them, they should walk with the expired permit. Not having the expired permit would not enable the police to check to see if they fall under this category, and therefore they run the risk to be fined or even prosecuted for illegal weapon possession. And the final note on that is, it is not, when handling the permits, the requests that came in, they will be handled according to the policy. The policy was promulgated in the publication sheet 2016 number 23, and it is I think, if I'm not mistaken, can be found online of the Justice Ministry, or definitely a copy would be able to be given at the Ministry Secretariat on the Illich Road. So it does not mean that if you had a weapon before, a license before, that you will automatically get a license again. The request would be judged according to the policy and the necessity to have such a permit. I hope with this that I have given information on the gun policy, also taken away the possibility that persons who have requested a renewal timely run the risk to be prosecuted due to the fact that the process in handling the applications is taking a bit long. The other point that I would like to touch is the recent instruction that was given by the Attorney General with regard to the asset recovery. If we can recall, some weeks ago, it was announced that an asset recovery team would be put in place to deal with that type of crime. And the intention there would be to be able to confiscate illegal gains or gains that come forth out of illegal activity. Immediately following that announcement, the press officer of the prosecutor office made a release that caused quite some consternation in the community, where we have been flooded with calls by people who were very concerned as to what would happen and would they become victims of this team, etc., etc. It also resulted in Parliament calling me in as minister to give an explanation as to what this team would be doing and based on which legislation the team would operate. Those discussions in Parliament I consider fruitful but have not been concluded as yet. There's still, Parliament asks a number of questions. The questions have been prepared and submitted to Parliament, as was requested to submit them in writing. And we will be continuing the discussions on that topic. During the discussions in Parliament, it became clear that more information is needed and guidelines would have to be set as to how that team would operate. Now, the way things work in the procedures, the Attorney General is the one who would issue such instructions to the prosecutors as to how they should go about the team or doing their work. When we started, there was no instructions. There was no, the articles were in the law, and again, based on the press release, it created the impression that they would be able to go out, the team would be able to go out there and do what they feel like, how they feel like, etc. So I implored on the Attorney General, just like is the case in Holland, to prepare instructions that would give a sense of security to the public, that once the team started to work, that they will be working based on guidelines and not just doing as they would feel. That is why the Attorney General prepared the guidelines. I have seen the guidelines and have been consulted with the preparation of the guidelines and published the guidelines. However, being that we were still in consultation with Parliament on the matter, I did not think it was right to continue with the implementation of the team, for the team to start working before we satisfied the questions and answered all the questions that Parliament was asking. After all, Parliament speaks on behalf of the people, and if the people are concerned, we should do everything in our power to make sure that we satisfy the need for information by the people before we just continue and ignore the people. Therefore, I, together with my colleague, Minister Gibson, who is the other minister responsible for the operation of the team, have requested the chief prosecutor to await our finalization of discussion with Parliament before continuing with the implementation of the team. So I want to separate two things here. The instructions that were published is the sole responsibility. It is the responsibility of the Attorney General to do so, given guidelines and instructions as to how the prosecutors should go about dealing with the matter of asset recovery. The Attorney General himself has no jurisdiction over the team in the sense of appointing the team or anything like that. That is myself as Minister of Justice and Minister of Finance, because the members of the team come from the departments within our respective ministries. So I just want to clarify the matter here, and the instructions that were published were published. I saw the instructions before they were published. But I think on the other hand, Parliament has not, and I repeat, Parliament has not asked to scratch or stop the process. Parliament has been asking questions, which is their right to do. And I feel that before that is clarified, we should await the actual implementation until we have satisfied Parliament with the answers. It is something that is the ministers, is the executive branch. It is not an issue that needs permission from Parliament to do. But I think as the body that directly represents the people and they have concerns, then we should respect that and satisfy those concerns. So there was some concern that maybe because of the instruction that came out that we were kind of sidetracking what we were doing in Parliament and just going ahead. That is not the case. The instructions are there. Whether the team is implemented or not, that is the responsibility of the Attorney General to come with those instructions. And once the team is operating, those are the instructions that they would have to follow. Those are the guidelines that they would have to follow. So that was my explanation on that. And lastly, if I look at my list, lastly, I would like to remind the public in general that we are in a hurricane season. We should be cautious. We should listen to media reports and weather reports of the Met Office, secure our surroundings, and make sure that we do not have loose-lying debris around our home. So we hope that we are not affected by any storms, but in the event that that should be the case, that we are prepared for it.
It is my pleasure to stand here this morning to update you on some goings-ons within the ministry as well as anything related to our ministry. First of all, I always love to take the time to congratulate those students who are out there doing great things, as I believe they deserve the spotlight more so than any. Firstly, in the area of sports, two of our recent top graduates with the FBE results, namely Kasmi Fib and Zanzi Brook, part of a team that traveled yesterday along with Coach Abdul Watley, who's the president of the Dynamics Club, and with support staff of about 18 Dynamic Club athletes to the 25th Annual Track and Field Invitational Meet in Curacao. They will be competing in the meet, which take place from yesterday, 4th to the 11th of July 2017, in events such as relays, field events and sprinting, long-distance events, as well as road races. This is seen as a stepping stone event for many of the younger athletes, giving them an opportunity to participate in a regional event. I know as a matter of course that in recent years when this team has traveled that they have done extremely well, and I look forward to hearing the great results. They usually post them on Facebook and the like, so those of you can probably follow also the Dynamics Club and the parents and supporters as they push these students forward, these student athletes forward. Also in sports, we have young Stéphane Duzong traveling as well to St. Lucia Creole Boxing Tournament, which commenced today. So much success is also wished to him. Upcoming, I am also made aware that the Little League tournament or the Little League Association is taking a team out to Antigua, also either today or tomorrow. So I wish all these young athletes, as they start their summer vacation, much success doing what they love, and wishing them also the opportunity to continue to represent themselves, their families in St. Martin, and St. Martin in positive ways. From the Culture Department, I have not so good news because it has been brought to the attention of the department that flags have been disappearing from our border points, the St. Martin flag in particular. I myself, in the weekend prior to this one, driving by to French Quarter, noticed that the French and the Dutch flag were flying, but the St. Martin flag was not. So when I brought that to their attention, they noted that this had been the second or third time in the past month that they have had to replace that flag, as well as the one at the Coal Bay Bellevue Monument. So I'm asking the general public to be vigilant and report if they notice someone removing these flags. And I'm asking those people who are doing that to cease and desist from doing so, because the flag is a symbol of our heritage, our country is a matter of pride, and you should not be removing flags from those locations. If you have noticed that the flag is not in a good condition, you need to report it to the Culture Department, and we will have it removed. Thank you so much in being a citizen that has St. Martin at heart, and I look forward to hearing from you if and when anyone still deems it necessary to remove it. From the Division of Exams, on Monday last, the government of St. Martin held a award ceremony for the top foundation-based exit exams performers nationwide, as well as for the top graduates per school. This was held right here in the new government building in a ceremony prepared by the cabinet, which I must say thank you very much for doing so on short notice. We as a ministry ensured that the tradition of honoring the top elementary school students continued. This has been something that's been going on for quite a while. The students were invited to the ceremony together with their parents and a school representative, whereby they were either nominated for the overall nationwide top students or top students in a subject. The 5 top students of the island received HP laptops each, while others in the top per subject, as well as in valedictorians per school, received Samsung tablets or a gift voucher from either Office World, Blue Point, or Von Dorp for school supplies. I would like to thank those business-minded, the community-minded business people who contributed, because of course in having to purchase that amount we had to ask for the best price. So thank you for giving us the lowest price possible to be able to award these students for their great achievements. The top 5 overall nationwide students were Akash Bhatia of the St. Joseph School with a score of 90%, an average of all his scores. Saheli Kirpalani was second with a score of 88%, also from the St. Joseph School. On the screen, you can see those students. The only one not represented is Akash, who had already left on vacation. Third is Miss Nisette Gomez. She's all the way to the left with a score of 88%. She comes from the Sister Magda School. Fourth overall, with a score of 86%, was Dia Agnani of the St. Dominic School. Dia is the one all the way to the right. And also with a score of 86 was Jaylene Javier Fana from the Helmich Snyder's Christian Hillside School, and she is the second to the left. So I'm standing in the middle along with the acting SG, Mrs. Powell Richardson, and to Mrs. Powell Richardson's right, you can see, or from your vision on the right, is the number 2, Saheli Kirpalani. So we are very, very proud of these top 5 students of St. Martin. I would like to encourage those going into Group 8 or Grade 6, as we say, for the new school year, to be not only encouraged to work hard for an award, but so that you can prove that you are putting your best foot forward. In the subject areas, there were 14 top students ranking 1 through 5. So initially I asked for the top 5, I asked for the top 10 of the island, and because so many of them have the same scores, it ended up being way too many children for me to award, and that's why we stuck with the first 5. And now per subjects, there were so many, and I will mention how many were in the top 5 scores of each subject, and then I will go into the top of each subject who were awarded. In Dutch, there were 14 students ranked from 1 to 5. In English, there were 15 students. In mathematics, there were 24 students ranked from 1 to 5. So that attained a score of 94 to 99%. And 18 students for general knowledge. Out of these rankings, we decided then to award the top student or students in some cases who had the same score per subject. In the area of Dutch was the number 3 overall student, Ms. Nisette Gomez, with a score of 94% from Sister Magda School. So Dutch highest score was 94%. In English, the top score was Akash Bhatia with a score of 97% for St. Joseph School. So that's also very good. That would mean like one mistake on one of the tests because they took several different tests for English and for Dutch. In general knowledge, which was broken down in both science and social studies, 2 separate tests, the top scorers, all scoring 83%, were Zanzi Brook of the Christian Hillside Asher Stevens School, Shirag Ramchandani of the Braulia Millard campus, and Christopher Ruan Moriso of the Seventh-day Adventist elementary school. So those 3 were the top number 1 students with 83%. In mathematics, that's where the highest scores were seen, which has been said over the years have been the poorest subject. So they're both the highest and the poorest in the sense of not as many students pass. It's an area we're working to improve and have been taking steady actions and have seen a slight improvement also in the Dutch.